All right, let's bring in CBS News political reporter Libby Cathey to talk more about the Trump transition. So, Libby, walk our audience through exactly what Elon Musk, a billionaire who spent hundreds of millions of dollars in his attempt to help the president-elect win re-election to the White House, what he and Vivek Ramaswamy would be tasked with in the Trump administration. And I feel like there's sort of a little bit of trolling going on there that the name of this pseudo government organization has the initials that spell out Doge, which is a cryptocurrency that Elon Musk touts all the time, which is probably going to make him more money.
Yeah, good to be with you, Vlad. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, having President Trump's ear this week at Mar-a-Lago, and for some time before that, as you mentioned, donating millions to his campaign. Well, that seems to be paying off in an appointment, per se, this pseudo-government department, as you call it, the Department of Government Efficiency. Trump announced yesterday that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would lead this department. Now, there's a lot of questions about what exactly it would do, but the initials, the acronym DOGE, Doge, that is a little bit of a trolling, as you mentioned, referring to that meme of the winking dog. Musk's posts very often on the platform Twitter. He just bought X now. But Doge, this Department of Government Efficiency, lots of questions on what exactly it will do, how exactly it will work, but it's meant to cut spending. Vivek Ramaswamy on the campaign trail, when he was challenging now President-elect Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, talked about cutting some 200,000 jobs from the federal workplace, or 10% of the federal workforce. So that's what we're expecting. Elon Musk posted over Twitter this morning saying that the department will be transparent, that they will post how our taxpayers' dollars are being spent. But really, this is showing how much influence Musk has over Trump, with Trump. He's traveling with him today in Washington, joining him at that meeting with Republican lawmakers right now. And this comes as Musk has tons of contracts with the government, with Starlink, with Tesla. So we will see how their relationship plays out in the coming weeks, but so far has had a very close ear to the former president, now the president-elect, Vlad.
So the other thing, Libby, let's talk about Pete Hegseth, who's been selected as the Secretary of Defense, at least to be nominated for the Secretary of Defense. I don't think anybody will question his patriotism and his service to our country. He's a major in the National Guard. But the question that a lot of people have are with regards to the qualifications. Being a company commander or even a battalion commander, if that is what he does in the Guard, is very different than running the world's largest military. And he does also bring to the table a lot of political views, whereas the military is generally thought of as apolitical.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Vlad. A lot are questioning this decision for Pete Hegseth to lead the world's largest military, to be the next Secretary of Defense. But Trump putting out that announcement last night. Now, if you watch Fox News, you'd probably recognize Pete Hegseth. He is a weekend host on Fox and Friends, appears on a lot of weekday programs as well. And I think what this pick reflects is Trump's importance, the significance he's putting on his cabinet members to be able to carry his message on the television screen. Our Weijia Jiang reporting that Trump at Mar-a-Lago has television screens set up and is watching clips of some of these picks to see how they would carry his message. So Pete Hegseth, yes, as you mentioned, a major in the Minnesota National Guard. He has served, but also has spent a lot of time on television carrying Trump's America First message. So that is probably one of the reasons that it's driving this decision. In addition to his service, while he hasn't had government experience, he has had a lot of experience carrying Trump's message to an audience, Vlad.
Libby, help me understand something, because you've covered the Trump campaign and the president himself for some time now. On one hand, the president-elect seems to revere military leaders, and he's talked about this gentleman. He talked about potentially appointing him Secretary of Defense during interviews months ago. So it's not sort of out of left field. But on the other, he also denigrates those military leaders who disagree with them, like General Mark Milley or Admiral William McRaven, or even General John Kelly, who actually served in the Trump administration. Help me understand that dichotomy.
Yeah, so Trump tries to separate what he calls the everyday American military serviceman and these generals at the top that he thinks have become more part of the Biden administration, have become, quote, woke generals, he calls them. But that's how Trump separates it. He says he supports the military, that he is the biggest fan of the military, quote, but then he criticizes these four-star generals that have served this nation and reached the highest rankings possible. You mentioned General Admiral McRaven. We also, John Bolton. The list goes on and on. Milley, John Kelly, people that served with him. Mark Esper. The list goes on and on. People that have served with him that he just denigrates now. And that is because Trump separates these, quote, woke military officials at the Pentagon and what he sees are everyday service members. That is how Trump separates it. But he would say he's a huge supporter of the military. Now, his critics and Democrats would say that, as you pointed out, Trump has absolutely said disparaging things about some of the nation's top generals that have served with him. Vlad.
All right, Libby Cathey. I know, Libby, you're sticking around. We'll talk with you a little bit later in the hour. We appreciate you as always. Thanks.